All right, thanks to our friends on the 5. This is a Fox News alert. Welcome to Hannity. President Trump, he is responding to the Senate Republicans' failure to deliver on a key promise made to you, the American people, and that is to repeal and replace Obamacare. Herman Cain, Jay Sekulow, Greg Jarrett, Tom Fitton, and House Freedom Caucus members, Congressman Jim Jordan, Congressman Mark Meadows, they're all here tonight with a reaction. But first, enough is enough when it comes to congressional Republicans breaking their word and failing to deliver. No more excuses. It's time. The GOP, you either step up and get the job done or get out of Washington. And that's tonight's opening monologue. In an epic failure, the Senate GOP plan to repeal and replace Obamacare has now sadly, tragically, completely fallen apart, which breaks a major promise they have been making to you, the American people. Not 1 year, not 5, for 7 years. The majority leader, Mitch McConnell, now says that the plan going forward is to do a clean repeal of the disastrous health care law, and we'll see how that plays out. I'd be happy with that. I'll explain later. And earlier today, President Trump reacted to the news of the latest failure from Congress, the lack of urgency, the lack of accomplishments of them. Take a look.
I'm certainly disappointed. For 7 years, I've been hearing repeal and replace from Congress, and I've been hearing it loud and strong. And then when we finally get a chance to repeal and replace, they don't take advantage of it. So that's disappointing.
All right, we're going to have a lot more on President Trump's reaction later in the show. But first, pay very close attention. If you're in the D.C. swamp, I have a very important message for you, congressional Republicans. I and so many of us in the country, we have run out of patience with you. You are the do-nothing GOP lawmakers. And up to now, to be very, very honest, and it's really sad, you're pretty useless. And all you have now is excuses and broken promises. Remember 2010, vote for us, give us the House, we'll get rid of Obamacare. Well, which the American people did. You got the House in 2010. In 2014, you said, give us the House and the Senate. And we delivered. The people delivered. And then in 2016, you said, give us the House and Senate and the White House, and then, once and for all, we'll repeal Obamacare. Okay, let's remind this audience exactly what they were promised, so there's no ambiguity here. Take a look.
There's only one way to truly fix Obamacare. Only one way. And that's a full repeal. A full repeal. That's been our goal from the start. That's our goal now, and we plan to achieve it.
It's clear that any serious attempt to improve our health care system must begin with full repeal and replacement of Obamacare. Amish and I remain fully committed to fighting on behalf of the people of Arizona.
Repealing Obamacare's poorly crafted and misguided mandates and replacing the law with a fiscally responsible reform bill that contains costs and provides more choices is the best path forward.
You can't repair this monstrosity. You got to tear it down and start all over again.
How do you get to that point, though?
When they lose elections.
And do you think that's the key, that the Republicans have to take the Senate, and from that point you can have a different strategy?
Yeah, the ones who survive in 2016 or up in 2016 are going to have a different attitude.
You know, this was the Republicans' big chance, and up till now they've completely blown it. Now, since 2011, remember the Republican-controlled House? They have voted a whopping 68 times to repeal, defund, delay parts of Obamacare. Guess what? I guess it now turns out they were all phony show votes because they never used the power of the purse. Where is the decisive action? You know, was this all a big game, a giant fraud perpetrated on the American people? Well, now you Republicans, you face a moment of truth. This is a tipping point. And as I said last night, if you want to be successful, if you want to hold on to your seats in 2018 in the midterms, there are 4 key things you better accomplish by the end of this year. Remember I said last night, you need to have completed at least 200-300 miles of the border wall and have a plan in place and fund the rest of it. In other words, fund the rest of building the wall. Second, this is not an option. Obamacare repealing is not an option. You don't do your job, many of you will be fired and deserve to be fired. Third, you need to have an energy revolution. We need to be energy independent. And we'll also create millions of high-paying career jobs to Americans that desperately need them. The fourth and most important aspect of this, after you get the $1 trillion savings from repealing Obamacare, or at least trying to start repealing and replacing, then that $1 trillion, well, then you add the middle class tax cuts, the corporate tax cuts. That's got to be done soon as well, and maybe make it retroactive. Also, the repatriation, multinational corporations, so they can invest trillions in manufacturing centers and factories here in America. We've got to get the 50 million Americans out of poverty, off of food stamps, back in the labor force, and buying homes. Now, how do you accomplish goal number 3, which is repealing, replacing Obamacare? Here's what you Republicans in Congress need to do. This is my recommendation to you. You're all pretty lazy. Both chambers need to get together. We'll start with the Senate. 52 members, get in a room. By the way, turn off the air conditioner. Start sweating like the rest of America. You know what? Use fans like our founding fathers and framers did. And you know what? No Senate dining room food and fare for you. How about order some pizza? Get some fast food. Get some KFC, some Wendy's, and Herberger. I'll even send beer and Coke and Sprite. And you know what? Don't leave the room until you do your job and come out and say, we have come to an agreement and we have a bill that we can put on President Trump's desk. In other words, serve the American people. Put up a big sign. America's promises, your promise to the American people. We are servants of the people. If you can't get this done, then new leaders need to be elected who can do your job. And for example, in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, you can't get the job done, step aside, and let's put somebody in your place. Now, to his credit in the House, Paul Ryan did get a bill passed. Not what I wanted, but at least it was a great first start. But you got to face facts here. This is beyond pathetic. It's now July 18th. All these years, all you Republicans promise, again, that you're going to end the nightmare that is Obamacare. Millions have lost their health care plans. They lost their doctors. They're paying on average $6,000 to $8,000 more a year because of Obamacare. It's an epic failure. And you know what? Coming close doesn't count. You people in Congress, you are pampered, you are overpaid, you are spoiled. Just listen to all the perks these senators get to break their promises. All right, here's their salary, $174,000 a year, 3 times higher than the median household income. I know you have 2 homes. I get the whole argument. You get free parking at work. You get free parking at airports. You get an average allowance of $3.3 million to maintain your offices and hire assistants. You also get taxpayer-subsidized haircuts. Why do I have to pay for your haircut at the Senate barbershop? You have access to the congressional gyms. Well, guess what? Until you can keep your word, do your job, all these benefits need to go away. And the most important, stop with the vacations. You're in recess for 77 weekdays per year. I get it. Some of you need to spend a little time back in your districts, but not playing golf. Do what you need to do. Stay at work. Stay in work all of August. And when you're in the middle of negotiating a bill, don't take off. Don't go on vacation yet again, because you know what? It doesn't make sense. And it is exactly why the American people, and me included, I'm fed up with all of you. This is why your approval rating is in the gutter. Latest Gallup poll, you're at 20%. Congratulations, you earned it. And while Republicans continue to drag their feet and fail to rid the American people of the burdens of Obamacare, maybe it's time to think out of the box. You know, on TV and radio, I interview this doctor. I've been interviewing him since 2012. The guy's a genius. His name is Josh Umber. He runs a cost-effective health cooperative, concierge care for anybody that can pay $50 a month, on call 24/7, and $50 a month, $10 a month for kids. Here's Dr. Umber explaining how it works. Maybe you should listen to real solutions. Take a listen.
The idea is direct primary care, which is the new model going forward, where we don't take insurance because we don't need insurance for the common things. Our care is $10 a month for kids, $50 a month for most adults for unlimited visits, no co-pays, free office procedures, and up to 95% savings on medications, labs, imaging, etc. by going wholesale. We're able to take that full value, go back to an employer, decrease their insurance premiums by 30 to 60% in the first year. These are things that could dramatically change the scope of medicine in this country.
Wow. It's such a simple concept. So instead of arguing over how much money the federal government should spend and subsidize health care, well, why don't you work on new paradigms, new ideas, things like Dr. Umber has been doing in Wichita, Kansas to control costs. And by the way, he's duplicated that model in 600 other offices around the country. And for the record, I'll accept the 2015 repeal of Obamacare, and I'll accept a 2-year transition period, which is their plan B, but only under this condition. You can't spend billions of new dollars in new spending. Here with reaction, Fox News contributor Herman Cain. Herman, I'm angry. How is this possible? 7 years, give us the House, give us the Senate, give us the White House. How is this even possible?
First of all, Sean, in the Baptist church, I would say amen, amen, amen. I agree with everything you said with the same amount of passion with which you said it. Now, when you talked about Dr. Umber, let me tell you, what is that old saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. The American people are going to be seeking more of these concierge health sharing approaches. That's number one, because they are not going to continue to take this inaction on their part. Secondly, you can't blame the 4 senators that said that they won't vote for it. All of them are responsible. And secondly, one of the reasons that they met this deadlock is because they're still trying to protect the insurance companies. Remember, under Obamacare, they had the risk corridors. That was a sweetener for the insurance companies. And then they tried to sneak in something here called stabilization fund. That's another sweetener for the insurance companies, because the health insurance companies are playing both sides. And what the doctor did was he took the insurance companies out of the middle, and that's what a lot of people are going to do. And then I would encourage every viewer of your show, every listener of my radio show, let your senators know that you are disappointed and discouraged with how this ended up. Newt Gingrich said it last night. Give us something tangible. I would describe it in baseball terms. You didn't hit the home run. Give us some singles and some doubles, or people are going to stay home in 2018.
And the House didn't pass a home run either.
No.
No. Were it not for the Freedom Caucus, we'd have nothing passed.
Exactly.
But at least the CBO said, what, it was going to lower rates, what, 30%, 35%? Yes. Okay, the American people desperately need that relief.
Yes.
I mean, after losing their doctor's plans and having no options in rural counties all across the country. Here's my next question. Do you like my idea? Let's put a few fans in a room. Let's take their air conditioner away. Let's take their Senate dining room privileges away. Let's take their barbershop privileges away. Let's take away their health care privileges. How about they eat pizza? By the way, Godfather's is fine.
Of course.
Drink Pepsi. I mentioned Coke. I know you work for Pepsi.
No,
you
I work for Coke.
Right?
You got it right.
Okay, sorry. I don't know your whole resume. How about they eat KFC, Wendy's, McDonald's, and pizza, and don't leave the room till you do your job? 7 years is long enough.
Here's one other thing they should do in that hot room. Forget about your supporters that you're trying to appease and please. Remember your constituency and the public that you ought to be pleasing and appeasing. Here's a statistic that they ought to keep in mind. It was shared with me by Senator Perdue of Georgia that in 2014, 8 million people, nearly 8 million people, chose not to take Obamacare and paid the penalty. 50% of those people make less than $50,000 a year. Those are the people that they ought to be thinking about in that hot room, not who's supporting them, not who's going to give them money from their PACs, and this sort of thing. That's what I would add to the hot room scenario.
The free market works.
Yes.
Health savings accounts, Dr. Umber's healthcare cooperative, it all works.
Yes.
This is not brain surgery. All right, 999, we remember your plan.
It's still
fine.
That's all I got to say.
I know. All right. My good friend, Herman Cain. When we come back, we're going to check in with the Freedom Caucus chairman, Mark Meadows. He'll join us, along with former chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan. They will react to the Senate's epic Obamacare failure and what needs to be done. Then later, you don't want to miss a very important mini monologue. We have new information tonight. The FBI released emails related to the Clinton server investigation. Was there a grand jury impaneled? Did she obstruct justice? Wait till you hear what we have uncovered. Greg Jarrett, Tom Fitton, and Jay Sekulow will react. All of that. And Tommy Lahren has the final word again tonight.
I am very disappointed because, again, even as a civilian, for 7 years I've been hearing about health care. And I've been hearing about repeal and replace. I've been saying for a long time, let Obamacare fail, and then everybody's going to have to come together and fix it and come up with a new plan, and a plan that's really good for the people with much lower premiums, much lower costs, and much better protection. I've been saying that, Mike, I think you'll agree, for a long time. Let Obamacare fail. It'll be a lot easier. And I think we're probably in that position where we'll just let Obamacare fail.
That was the president earlier today reacting to the Senate's failure to repeal and replace Obamacare after 7 long years of promises. He's disappointed. He has a right to be. Now, my next two guests support this clean repeal, what they did in 2015 of this disastrous law. Joining us now with Reaction, Freedom Caucus Chairman, Congressman Mark Meadows, North Carolina, and Freedom Caucus, well, former chairman, they fired him, Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. You didn't get fired. I'm kidding. We're friends. All right. Look, I know how hard the health care bill in the House wouldn't have got passed without the Freedom Caucus. And I know the endless hours you all worked to make it happen. And it wasn't perfect, but it was a single, maybe a double if I'm being generous. But it was progress. This is a 7-year promise. I like the clean repeal idea, but 3 Republican senators, you have what, Collins, Murkowski, and Capito, I think is her name, all saying they're against it. We don't have the votes already for that. Congressman Meadows.
Well, I mean, one of the problems is 2 of those senators you just mentioned actually voted on this very same bill last year. And so to suggest that they're going to vote no now when they voted yes to send it to a President Barack Obama then, why not send the same bill to President Trump? Because I can tell you we'll get a different result. We're being outworked by the President of the United States. We've got to get it done here. And enough is enough. A clean repeal, if we can't find a repeal and replacement vehicle, now's the time to act, Sean.
Yeah, and Congressman Jordan?
No, I mean, look, it never hurts to do what you said, right? We told the American people we were going to repeal it. Let's pass the same thing we passed in 2015. And it's a very different animal when you actually call the vote up. I always tell people if you never kick the ball off and play the game, you're never going to actually know who wins. So sometimes the conventional wisdom doesn't hold true. Let's call the roll. Let's see what happens. They might say they're going to vote against it. Call it up both in the House and the Senate. And let's say, okay, are you really going to vote different than you voted just 15, 16, 17 months ago? Are you really going to do something different than you told the American people you were going to do the last 6 years? Never forget 2010, 2014, 2016 elections. This was a central issue where we promised them repeal. So let's call it up and see if what they say now actually happens when it's the roll call and they're out there on the floor of the Senate or the House actually casting the vote.
Is there anybody at all on the Democratic side of the aisle that's willing in any way to help? Is Joe Manchin any Democrat you can think of, or are they just, literally
Sean, maybe
sheep?
Well, that's if you repeal it first, then maybe you can put together a coalition with some Democrats and Republicans to address the things that need addressed. But until you repeal, there's no incentive for the Democrats because they love Obamacare, even though it's been a disaster for people who pay the premiums and pay the deductibles and who live under it. So repeal it first, then you might be able to put together the coalition to actually accomplish some things that both sides agree with.
Congressman Meadows, this could actually work out better. You repeal it first, and they all voted for it, as you said, in 2015.
Right.
Then you could really add the cooperatives I'm talking about, add the health savings accounts we've been talking about, add the catastrophic care that I've been talking about.
Interstate shopping.
I think it could work out better.
Well, you're right. All those points. The president made that point last night when he commented on this the very first time. He says we'll get some Democrat involvement. When we're talking about repeal, it's very difficult for a Democrat to vote on anything that repeals something that has their president's name on it. But once it's repealed, it's all about coming together and finding out what works best. And my good friend Jim just mentioned that. It's about that competition across state lines. It's about making sure that we have association plans that actually can provide a group kind of policy that would drive premiums down, protect those pre-existing conditions. But we've got to be all hands on deck. You know, having failure is not an option right now. And so whether it's on the Senate side or the House side, let's go ahead with a clean, straight repeal and get it done and make sure that we send something to the president so he can sign it.
Well, I got to say something publicly. I've said it on my radio show. Honestly, without the Freedom Caucus, I have zero confidence in anybody in D.C. That is so sad. You are the only guys that are fighting and have a sense of urgency and are trying to thread the needle and get the job done. And I give you guys a lot of credit. There are a few guys in the Senate. I'll give them credit, too. But really, the Freedom Caucus, you know, you guys are the ones fighting. And there are those of us that appreciate it. Thank you. But when we come back, I have probably more evidence of Hillary corruption in our mini monologue tonight because the FBI released a batch of emails related to Hillary's server scandal. And, oh, wait till you hear what we have discovered. Nobody's reporting it. Greg Jarrett, Tom Fitton, Jay Sekulow with reaction. And Tommy Lahren is back tonight. She has the final word all week here on Hannity as we continue on this busy breaking news night. Stay with us. Welcome back to Hannity. All right, so we have a big breaking news scandal that the media has buried. Now, as you know, we've been following three major scandals that the destroyed Trump media, the establishment media, doesn't care to cover because it doesn't fit into their biased and ideological agenda. Tonight, we're going to add a fourth scandal with new evidence emerging that Hillary Clinton, in fact, may very well have obstructed justice. You haven't heard about it before. It's tonight's important mini monologue. All right, before I get to the new breaking scandal, let me explain everything we've now been telling you on this program. Let's start with the major issue of Ukrainian election interference. Now, unlike the black helicopter, tinfoil hat, Russia collusion conspiracy theories that the left has now been pushing, we have real evidence of collusion. We know that there was an effort to pass along information to the DNC in the Clinton campaign. We know that there was an impact on the election. Remember, former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort, he resigned from the Trump campaign. Now let's look at the facts. Back in January, Politico published this explosive story. The headline was, Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. Kiev officials are scrambling to make amends with the president-elect after quietly working to boost Hillary Clinton. Now, this scandal allegedly involves one-time DNC operative, her name Alexandra Chalupa, and the Ukrainian government officials who, according to Politico, well, they worked to undermine and damage the Trump campaign and to assist Hillary Clinton. Collusion. And according to Politico, Chalupa, who worked at the Clinton White House, reportedly tried to expose the former Trump campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, and also met with Ukrainian diplomats at the Ukrainian embassy. And Chalupa told Politico that those Ukrainian diplomats were, quote, helpful when it came to finding leads and digging up dirt. And then there's this damning quote about Chalupa in the article. Quote, she occasionally shared her findings with officials from the DNC and Clinton's campaign. That's pretty shocking, which is why you, the American people, need information about what Chalupa discussed with the DNC and the Clinton campaign. Now, once again, we did reach out to Chalupa. We want comment. We still have not heard back from this DNC operative. Now, Chalupa, big surprise, on Friday she gave a statement to the fake news network CNN. Here's part of the quote. During the 2016 U.S. election, I was a part-time consultant for the DNC running an ethnic engagement program. I was not an opposition researcher for the DNC. The DNC never asked me to go to the Ukrainian embassy to collect information. By the way, during a long period of time, she made over $412,000. That was in the Politico article. Now, Chalupa also admitted that she did meet with Ukrainian officials at the Ukrainian embassy. And here's the thing. If the Politico story was wrong, if it was inaccurate, then why did Chalupa wait 6 months to now finally correct the record? Could it be we're covering this every night? There's another major scandal we've been covering. That's the Uranium One deal. We have been telling you, this is the real Russian collusion conspiracy story that the media, they don't want to pay attention to. Take a look at this chart. During her tenure as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, remember, she signed off a waiver approving giving up to 20% of America's uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons, to Vladimir Putin and the Russians. And while this was happening, those who were involved in that deal, well, they kicked back $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. And, of course, Bill Clinton, he doubled his speaking fees in Moscow. Well, I don't know about you. Where I'm from, that's called bribery. That's called pay to play. Then the third scandal we've been telling you about, that's that fake news dossier. Remember, put together the group connected to the Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS. The opposition research group has ties to the Democrats, liberal groups like Planned Parenthood. And according to reports, this dossier, first commissioned, yes, by a Republican donor, but eventually a Clinton ally ended up paying for this. And what's so disturbing, Christopher Steele, he's the former MI6 agent from Great Britain, well, he put this smear document together. What was he relying on? Russian government sources. Some of them were told were paid, or sources with ties to the Russian government. Then there's a law firm connected to both Fusion GPS and that Russian lawyer who met with Donald Trump Jr. in 2016. This is a massive double standard from Democrats on this fake news dossier. Now, they've been hyperventilating, so emotional about the notion of Russia collusion and other countries trying to impact our elections, but they've been perfectly fine repeating in public unproven information from the dossier. Remember, hookers, Ritz-Carlton, urinating on a bed? Now, as we just said, in some cases, they relied on phony Russian sources. Now, in addition tonight to those three scandals, there's a new one you need to know about, and it involves Hillary Clinton. Shocker. This involves possible obstruction of justice. Last Friday, media didn't really report on this a lot. The FBI did release 42 heavily redacted pages about its criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server, you know, in the mom and pop shop bathroom closet. Several of the documents have sections that were marked as grand jury information. And here's the potentially criminal part. One of the pages in the FBI, well, it released details how Clinton's lawyers handed over one of Hillary's iPads and two of her BlackBerry devices to the FBI. Remember, she said, well, I only wanted to keep it on one device. And here's where it gets really interesting. Fox News' Pamela Brown, she connected the dots for us. In a separate document obtained by Judicial Watch, buried in a footnote, is the fact that two BlackBerries, well, that Clinton's legal team handed over to the FBI, they didn't have any SIM cards. What does that mean? They were essentially worthless to the FBI. So now the question is, well, what did they do with those SIM cards? And the other questions, did the FBI demand that they be turned over? Is this obstruction of justice? On top of course, not handing over the SIM cards. Remember, the person who did this because she wanted the convenience of one device, well, she also deleted over 30,000 emails. Remember, she used BleachBit. In other words, she acid washed her computer. Then, according to the FBI, on at least two occasions, Clinton aides, they took a hammer and they destroyed her old mobile devices. This is beyond damning information. It needs to be investigated further. Now, where's the call for the special counsel? Where are the congressional committees that are issuing subpoenas? Where is the outrage, hysteria from the left-wing establishment media, from Democrats that have been Russia, Russia, Russia? And we've been saying the people involved in all of this, they all need to be put under oath. They need to explain exactly what happened here. If you did it at home, you'd be in handcuffs, perp walked, mugshots, all over the newspapers. It's time we have equal justice under the law. Restore the rule of law in this country. Hold Hillary Clinton to the same legal standards as all of us.